G'day everyone, welcome to Inside Rugby with Mark and welcome to the weekend preview show. Okay, so if you haven't been here before, my name is Mark. I'm a Kiwi bloke, I'm a huge rugby fan, and I'm living here in beautiful Cancun in Mexico. And you might see a gentleman behind me throughout this video. His name's Enrique. He's in his mid-80s and he's out here training every single day, so he's one of my neighbors. Now let's get on with the show, and I want to thank you all for the wonderful support in talking about the restructuring of this show. This is the first weekend preview show, and I've just ordered a whole bunch of equipment so I can make up a studio in my house, and things are only going to get better for all of us. So let's get on with this first weekend preview show. And in today's show, I've got plenty for you coming from across the rugby world. Of course, we've got the second test match between the Lions and the Wallabies taking place at the Melbourne Cricket Ground in Australia. That game's going to start in less than 24 hours. So I'm going to give you an in-depth preview to that game, give you my predictions, talk about the players in both teams and see how that one's going to fall, and also share some of your opinions on that one as well. Then we've got some World Cup Qualifier games taking place this weekend. It may not mean too much to you, but to these countries, it's absolutely everything is on the line trying to get to Australia in 2027. So I'll give you a little bit of an insight to those games. And we've got some women's internationals taking place this weekend, which are also going to be very important as they lead up to their World Cup this year. So let's get on into the show. And first of all, we're going to talk about that test match in Australia between the Lions and the Australian Wallabies. So last weekend, the Lions beat the Wallabies in Brisbane in Australia by 27 points to 19, an 8-point advantage in that particular game. And many of you said in the comments that the Lions took their foot off the gas, and not too many of you on that side of the fence actually gave the Wallabies the credit they deserved, I think, for coming back in the second half and putting the pressure on the Lions. Also, it was noted in the comments that the Lions bench didn't perform very well, and some of you were suggesting changes for this weekend's game in Melbourne. On the Australian side, many of you agreed with me that one warm-up game wasn't enough for the Wallabies to take on this Lions team, and their demonstration in the second half showed that maybe they got their strategy right and they started to shake off some of the rustiness. The impact from the bench was quite good as well, with Ben Donaldson obviously making an impact and Tom Lynagh not having the best of games at number 10 for the Wallabies to start this one. So what's going to happen this weekend? What's Andy Farrell done for the Lions team? Any changes? And what has Joe Schmidt done to the Wallabies? Well, let's take a look at the Lions first of all, and we'll see what changes Andy Farrell's made for their team for tomorrow's game. So we'll start off in the forwards, and in particular look at the front row for the Lions. And one change here, we're seeing Genge go out and we're seeing Andrew Porter come in. So that means we've got a full Irish front row with Porter, Sheen and Furlong, and I think Andy Farrell's looking for some continuity here to get the forward pack on top of this Wallaby team, and he's starting by looking at the changes in that front row. We've also got a change in the second row where we're going to see Maro Itoje back, but this time with Ollie Chisholm. That means Joe McCarthy's not in this game, and we're going to see Chisholm come on and play from the start of this game. Now, I've been impressed with Chisholm on this tour. I think he's done some really good stuff for the Lions. And Maro Itoje, well, we know how good he can be. Many of you said in the comments that he didn't have a spectacular game last weekend. I saw him do some pretty good stuff, but let's see. So in the back three for the Lions, we're going to see the same thing in the forwards that we saw last week. That means Ty Byrne, Tom Curry, and at the back, Jack Conan. I thought Tom Curry was the standout forward for the Lions last week. Thought he played an exceptionally good game. Was robust in the breakdowns and very, very quick, but his defence was massive at times as well, stopping some of those Australian attacks in the second half. So we'll have to see whether Curry can put another performance like that out in this game on the weekend. Okay, so that's the forwards for the Lions to start the game. Now let's have a look at the back line for the Lions, and at number 9 we've got Jamison Gibson-Park. Thought he played very well the way he managed the game last weekend against the Wallabies, and Andy Farrell obviously agreed with that. And he's going to be starting with, again, Finn Russell, who there's been a lot of talk around the world of rugby this week that maybe Finn Russell is the best number 10 in world rugby. Of course, that's been objected by people in South Africa, but I give my vote at the moment for Finn Russell. I think he's playing some of the best rugby we've seen from him throughout his illustrious career already. Then moving into the 12 and 13, we are going to see a change for the starting lineup this weekend. We're going to see Bundy Aki coming in, and we're going to see Hugh Jones in the number 13 jersey. That means Simone Tui-Piloto is not starting in this game for the Lions. So we're going to see Bundy Aki, and whether or not those busting runs can get over the advantage line and cause the Wallabies all sorts of problems. But I'm sure Andy Farrell's strategy around having Bundy Aki in here is to get quick second phase ball back for the Lions and to open up the Wallabies both down the middle and also through the inside channels. So that's going to be interesting to see whether that Bundy Aki positioning in there makes a big difference. Then out on the wings, we're going to see the same two as we saw last week. Tommy Freeman on one wing, James Lowe on the other. Many people said Tommy Freeman didn't have his best game ever, nor did James Lowe. Will those two guys be able to step it up this weekend and have a better game? Hugo Keenan's, of course, back in the team after being very sick, and we haven't seen the best of him yet, but I'm sure he's going to be in there. Blair Kinghorn, of course, has been injured, played in the last warm-up game before the first test. Farrell thinks Hugo Keenan is a better choice in there at fullback to start this game. So there we go, that's the back line that'll start the game for the Lions. Now let's have a look at their bench, and I'll give you my thoughts around that as well. So the Lions have gone with a 5-3 split, and coming off the bench in the forwards, we're going to see Genge, who's dropped out of the starting lineup as I mentioned, Gallagher and Will Stewart. So that's a pretty good punchy bench to bring on. Are they going to have a better impact than they had last weekend? I think that might be one of the reasons why we've seen Genge go down to the bench, to make sure the Lions do have that impact. So then the last two in the forwards is Ryan and Morgan, and it's great to see Jack Morgan getting a chance in this Lions test team against the Wallabies. That's a fantastic positional change as far as I'm concerned. That means Ben Earl drops out of this team. Okay, that's the forwards that'll come off the bench for the Lions. Now let's have a look at their backs, and yes, there's been some changes here. First up, Alex Mitchell. He was coming on last weekend, so he gets another slot. But the next two, Owen Farrell and Blair Kinghorn, we didn't see them last weekend. So this is a really interesting move, and I think if we see a tight game in the second half, that's why Owen Farrell's in there. Also his leadership, his experience, of course, around the field, a very big plus, I think, for this Lions team. And obviously Kinghorn's at a stage where he can come on if needed, and maybe if Keenan's not producing the goods at fullback, we might see that switch to Blair Kinghorn rather earlier than what we might have anticipated in this particular game. So there we go, that's the British Lions team to play against the Wallabies tomorrow in Melbourne. I think it's an extremely good team. I now want to see whether or not they keep their pedal on the metal for 80 minutes. For all of you that said they took their foot off the gas last weekend, well, I don't think they can afford to do that this weekend. So we'll see whether they get out there and play the full 80 minutes. I think the changes are good. I think Aki coming in to start the game is going to make a difference in that midfield, and in particular the speed of the ball that the Lions are going to be able to get back across the advantage line. Watch out for that. I think that's going to be significant in this particular game. Also, the changes are going to be interesting. Chisholm and also Andrew Porter. Watch out for them in the forwards and see whether they have a real crack early on against this Australian team. Now, talking about the Wallabies, let's see what Joe Schmidt's done to the team and whether he's put any changes in for this test. So starting off with the Wallabies, we'll look in the forwards, and it's James Slipper coming out to start the game again. Of course, he played his 145th cap last weekend, and monumentous occasion. Some of you said he's past it, shouldn't be in there. Well, let's see how he goes this weekend. Then we've got a change at hooker. We're seeing David Poreki come in to this Australian team, and he's going to partner up with Alan Alalatoa, who's remained in the propping position for this game for the Wallabies. So one change in the front row for the Wallabies. And then we move back to their locking pair, and there is a change here as well. We're going to see Nick Frost, who we saw last weekend, but we're going to see big Will Skelton come back into this team. And a lot of people have been saying that this will make a big difference for the Wallabies. Will it though? I'll talk about that after we go through the selection. We're seeing another change here, and it's Rob Valentini back in the 6 jersey. A lot of people, including myself, are very pleased to see that. Valentini is a huge asset, I think, to this Australian team. And let's see how he goes this weekend in the 6 jersey. On the other side, it's Fraser McWright again, and at the back in number 8, we're seeing Harry Wilson, their captain and leader, who some of you said made a couple of unforced errors in the second half last weekend that might have cost Australia some more points in that first test. So that's a starting 8 for the Wallabies. Now let's have a look at their back line, and unfortunately I'm a little bit sad with this one because we're seeing the duo at 9 and 10 that we saw starting the game last weekend. Jake Gordon and Tom Liner in the 9 and 10 jersey. I don't think Liner read the game very well. I think he did some unforced errors that cost the Aussies in that first half and allowed the Lions to get some cheap ball to get back on the attacking offensive, and that cost them in the end because the Lions were able to execute. Now whether or not Joe Schmidt's had a talk to Tom Liner about that, we'll see a different game plan this weekend. We can only wait and see. As far as Jake Gordon goes, I thought Tate McDermott was way better when he came on in the second half. So maybe we're waiting to see that again in this particular game. And Joe Schmidt is keeping his powder dry when it comes to Tate McDermott. And then outside Tom Liner, we're seeing no changes from the Wallabies in their back line. We're seeing Len Ekitau at number 12. We're seeing Joseph Sua-Ali in number 13. And on the wings, we're going to see Harry Potter and Max Jorgensen. At fullback, it's Tom Wright. So no changes in that back line. And I think this is a good thing outside of Tom Liner and Jake Gordon, because last weekend in the second half, we saw the expansive game starting to come from the Australian Wallabies. And I think it's going to be critical that they can keep that going in this particular test match if they're going to have any chance at all. But I'll talk more about that in just a second. Now Joe Schmidt's gone for a 6-2 bench, which is very interesting in this game, and we're going to see the same trio come on for the front row that we saw last weekend. So it's Pollard, Angus Bell and Tom Robertson. I like Angus Bell a lot. I think he's a very dynamic player. He's good with ball in hand. He's great around the breakdowns. He scores the odd try, and he's very good at set piece. Tom Robertson I've been impressed with as well since I've seen him start playing, and I think that's a very good injection like we saw last weekend from the Wallabies. And then looking at the rest of their forwards, well, Jeremy Williams, who started as a lock last week, is going to be coming on, along with Lockie Gleeson. That's a good move, I think. And the last one, Tizano. So we've got some big power coming off the bench, and we've got some very strong intention with Tizano. He's a very much like a Quagga Smith type player as far as I'm concerned, and he added a lot of might to the Australians last weekend. He's just got to watch out on his discipline. I've talked about that in previous videos. He can give away the odd penalty or two to Tizano. So there we go. That's the Wallabies team to start this game and those coming off the bench. Now let's get into the prediction of what I think is going to happen. Now, unlike many of you said, I don't think the Lions took their foot off the gas last weekend. I think it's hard when you're a supporter of one team to give the other team credit where it's due, but I think the Aussies turned around their strategy well enough in the second half to really start opening the game up. And I don't see why the Wallabies don't play this style of game for the whole 80 minutes, or at least try to. I think Tom Liner's kicking in the first half last weekend was aimless. It cost them a lot on the ball, and the Lions were able to return the ball with interest and score some tries. I think if the Wallabies keep the Lions on their toes, push them out wide, we're going to see a better result for the Wallabies. That said, this Lions team is very, very good. They can go the full 80 minutes, and I expect Andy Farrell would have got up them in the week and told them that in no uncertain terms that he's expecting a more committed effort this weekend for the whole game. And we'll have to wait and see. If that is the case, I think the Lions are going to have too much artillery for this Australian team. I want Australia to win this game because I want to see a very much alive third test match next weekend between these two teams. I think it'd be great for the sport of rugby, particularly in Australia, and it'd be good for the Australian Wallabies' confidence. I don't buy into some of the comments I'm reading on my channel about Australian Wallabies are lost in space. They haven't got the world-class players. I think if this team continues to grow the way they are under Joe Schmidt, and with Les Kiss coming in as the head coach, I think they're going to get back to being one of the best rugby teams in the world. I think they have got the talent in this team. They just need to choose the way they're playing better and being able to execute that. They only had one warm-up game against Fiji, so let's get real about this. They haven't had the lead-up time that we've seen from some of these other teams across the world. So I think they'll be better for that alone this weekend, as they will again next weekend in the final test match. So if they're able to execute their game plan, if they are able to go to that open, expansive game plan, then I think they can push the Lions close in this game. And if the Lions turn off for any period of this game, I think the Australians can muscle back the momentum and really get themselves into the game. Jake Gordon and Tom Lynott are going to be critical in this game. If they have another poor game to start this game, it's going to give the Lions the ascendancy, and the Wallabies could be in a little bit of trouble. I'm expecting Rob Valentini to have a big game. If he doesn't, the Wallabies are not going to have any chance of competing in that breakdown area, and that's going to be a problem for them getting some clean ball. But I think we're going to see some of those Lions elevate their game. I think we're going to see better games this weekend, and the backs from the likes of Keenan, Freeman and Lowe. We're going to see Bundy Arke's impact. Russell and Gibson Park are going to give us more of what they gave us last weekend. And up front, we're going to see Maro Itoje step up this week. We are going to see the impact Ollie Chisholm can have, and we're going to see that back three go to work. And if Tom Curry has any type of game like he did last weekend, then the Wallabies are going to be in trouble. So there you go. My thoughts around this game is the Lions will win this game if they're able to keep their pedal to the metal for a longer period of time that they did last week. And if the Australians get impacted again by poor performances from Jake Gordon and Tom Lynott at 9 and 10, which dictates their strategy, then I think they'll miss out on it. But if they're able to bring Ikitau, Sua Ali and their wings and Tom Wright into this game, then I give the Wallabies a shout, and I think they might get very, very close. I'm hoping they do win, as I said, for the sake of rugby, but I think the Lions can do it because they've merely got too much class, and they've got a great bench coming on as well. So there you go. Those are my thoughts around the Lions versus Australia tomorrow in Melbourne. Let me know in the comments what you think, whether or not you think I'm talking a lot of BS or whether you're agreeing with at least some of the things that I'm saying about this game tomorrow. Okay, let's move on to the next section in today's show, and it's talking about World Cup Qualifier games. Okay, let's have a look at the World Cup qualifiers that are taking this place this weekend. And to anyone that's watching from any of these countries, good luck. I'm backing you. I want to make sure you get to Australia in 2027. So I can see you there down under as I take my show on the road. So the first game up is between the 39th ranked team in the world, that's the United Arab Emirates, and they're going to play the 27th ranked team in World Rugby at the moment, Namibia. And that's going to be a really interesting game. Namibia haven't had very good results so far this year, so they'll want to turn it around, but they should be favourites to win this game. But hey, this is a game of rugby, so anything can happen at all. So good luck to those two teams. I'll give you my thoughts and opinions after that game. Okay, so next game up is between number ranked 20th in the world, that's Chile against Brazil, 28th ranked in the world. Hello to supporters from both of those teams. Good luck in the weekend. Chile should take this one. We've seen them play some good rugby at times against the better teams in World Rugby. So I'm expecting them to have a comfortable win this weekend against Brazil. But good luck to both sides, and let's hope it's a great game of rugby. And then the last game this weekend in the World Cup qualifiers is between the 38th ranked team in the world at the moment, that's Paraguay, playing the 17th ranked team in Uruguay. This game's going to be played in Paraguay, so it gives the home team a little bit of an advantage, but I think Uruguay are going to be too good for them. They played well against the Pumas last weekend, Uruguay, in the first half. They lost it a little bit in the second half, but before that, the game before that, they had a great win, scoring 70 points against Romania. So I think the Los Teros will be too good against Paraguay this weekend, and I send both of those teams my best wishes as well as they take on this monumentous occasion of trying to get to the Rugby World Cup in 2027. Good luck to all sides in this weekend's qualifiers. I'll be back on Monday to let you all know how they went. Okay, so moving on, and we've got some women's international rugby taking place this weekend, which is great for rugby across the world. And we're going to see, first of all, Italy, who's ranked number 8 in the world, take on Scotland, who's ranked number 7. So theoretically, that should be a very close game. Let's see who wins that one. That's being played in Italy. The next game up is going to be Australia, who are ranked 6th currently in the world, against Wales, who are ranked 10th. That one's also going to be played in Australia, so that's going to be an interesting game. The Australians have had a little bit of a challenge to beat the New Zealand Black Ferns in the last couple of weeks, but I'm sure they'll bounce back and give Wales a good run for their money in that game. Then we're going to see in Japan, the home team, who are ranked number 11 in the world at the moment, take on Spain, who's ranked number 13. That should also be a very entertaining game, not too much between these two teams, and expect Spain, who in their men's game as well, are really starting to adopt the game of rugby and progress very, very well. So I'm sure the women are on an upward trajectory in Spain as well. So good luck to both of those teams this weekend. And then the final game this weekend is going to be the old foe rivalry again. It's going to be South Africa against the New Zealand Black Ferns. That game's going to be played in South Africa. South Africa are currently ranked number 12 in the world. The Kiwis are ranked number 3. And that's going to be another chapter in the rivalry between these two great rugby nations. So as I said in my review show on Monday, I'll give you the results of all those games. And if I do get to see some of the highlights, I'll talk about it as much as I possibly can as well. So there we go, folks. That's my first weekend preview show done. I hope you're enjoying the new structure of my shows. As I said, I've got plenty of gear coming. I'll be able to make a studio in my house very shortly, and we'll take this whole game up to another level. But in the meantime, you'll just have to enjoy this beautiful park here in Cancun, along with myself and Enrique in the background. Okay, well that's it. Let's get excited for another brilliant rugby weekend coming up. I'll be back, of course, over the weekend with an in-depth analysis of that game between the Lions and the Wallabies, giving you my ball-by-ball blow, pointing out all the players that I thought did very well, and whether or not the Wallabies were able to implement that strategy that I talked about earlier in this video. And then on Monday, I'll give you all the results of the games and talk about those World Cup qualifiers and those women's games, and give you any more news that I have from the world of international rugby. So there we go. Keep the comments coming. I love reading your thoughts from across the rugby world. I'll be back, of course, soon with some more content. Until then, you keep safe, keep well, keep enjoying your rugby all across the world. And it's time to say adios from beautiful Cancun in Mexico. Bye for now.